Okay, so let's do that right and left movement. Before we do the movement though, we need to create some inputs. And we can do that by going into the project setting and in the input map. Here you can define actions and those actions can be used to create inputs. So the first one is going to be left, right, and jump. Once you have defined the actions, you can use this plus icon to add keys to this. So if I press add event, it's listening for my input. So any key I press on the keyboard, it's going to record it. So let's just press A for the left and hit OK. It has added this A key. Let's add the other two, right and spacebar for jump. We have added the inputs now. So let's close this project setting and let's start making the input. So we're going to remove this pass and we're going to simply say if input dot is action pressed. Is action pressed is a function that lets you choose the action you created in the input map. So if I press the left button, I want to move my player to the left. After every condition or after every if condition or statement, you have to put a colon as this is the part of syntax. If you have used Python, this is kind of similar to that. Now I'm going to get into the next line and here I'm going to say print left just to make sure that our input is working. So if I run the game and I press the A key, as you can see, this is printing left. So that's working. Now let's just replace this left with the actual movement code. So to move the player, we have a built-in variable in characterBody3D class, which is velocity. So we are going to target the x velocity because we are moving in x direction. So I'm going to say velocity.x and then I'm going to set it equals to the speed variable. But as we are moving left and left is negative in Godot, so we're just going to simply say negative. And let's just do the same thing with the right. So I'm just going to copy these two lines, come over here and paste and just replace this with right. And also remove this negative sign because we're moving in the positive direction. And now the last thing we have to do is call a method which will allow our player to move. And that method is move and slide. If you hold your control button and hover over this, click on this function, you can see the documentation. So it says that it moves the body based on velocity. If the body collides with another, it will slide along the other body rather than stopping immediately. So it's a built-in method that moves the body based on the velocity. So if we do not do that, if I comment this by Ctrl plus K and I run the game, our character will not move because this is responsible for making the character moving. So I'm just going to uncomment it, and if I run the game now, the player will move. But it's quite fast, so let's fix that. To fix that, we are simply going to multiply the speed value with the delta. So let me show you what delta is. So according to GPT, delta is the time elapsed since the last frame was drawn or since the last physics step was calculated. It is often used in game development to ensure that gameplay and animations run smoothly regardless of the frame rate of the game. So if someone's computer is slow and the frame rate of the game is very slow in the computer, if we do not multiply the speed with delta, the speed will vary with the frame rate. So if there is less frame rate, the speed will slow, and if the frame rate is higher, the speed will be higher. So if I run the game now, the character speed will be very slow. So now let's just increase the speed value by 200. And if I run the game, you can see the speed is now very good, but it doesn't stop after I release the key. To fix that, we are simply going to convert this if into an else if. So in Godot, there is elif rather than writing else if. It's also similar to Python. After this condition, we're going to say else. We are going to say velocity.x equals 0. So what we're doing right here is we are checking if the left button is pressed, we move to left, or if the right button is pressed, we move to right. And otherwise, if these both conditions are false, then we simply stop and setting the velocity.x to 0. So if I run the game now, if I press, I move, and I release the key, I stop. But the stop is kind of sudden. So to fix that, we can lerp the velocity to 0 by a wait. So if I just type here lerp f is just lerp float, because the velocity.x, this is a float value and we are going to lerp the float. So I'm just going to use the lerp f. So the first value is going to be the velocity.x, the velocity with which our character is moving. So I'm going to say velocity.x, and after a comma I am going to say 0, because we are lerping towards 0. And lastly, the weight is going to be any value. I am going to give it delta times 10. So basically delta multiplied by 10, that's going to be the weight. So let's run this game now, and if I stop, so it smoothly transition to 0. If it feels too sleepy for you, increase this 10 by another value, let's say 20. So that's the basic left right movement done.